And welcome, and as always, welcome back. Today, I want to challenge a widely held belief about the end times. It's the idea of a future rapture, where believers are physically snatched away from the earth before a period of tribulation. Now, this concept is often drawn from passages like 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, and it relies on interpretations of Scripture that frankly are taken out of their original historical and linguistic context. Now, I will show you that the scriptural tribulation to be escaped was not a future event, but one that occurred in the period of AD 66 to 70, culminating in the destruction of Jerusalem. And critically, the Greek words used to describe this supposed future rapture have a completely different meaning within the reality of that AD 66 to 70 time frame. So let's look at three pivotal Greek words often cited from 1 Thessalonians 4 and how their true meaning reshapes our understanding. These words are HARPAZO, air, and APANTESIS. HARPAZO, Strong's Concordance number 726, means to seize, to carry off by force, or to seize on and claim for oneself eagerly. And it's translated caught up or snatched away. Many imagine this as a literal physical ascent into the sky. But consider 2 Corinthians 12, where Paul describes being caught up, HARPAZO, to the third heaven. Yet Paul remained on the earth to tell a story. The use of caught up in these contexts is closer to how we might say, quote, I was so caught up in that novel I felt like I was in the story. The normal usage of HARPAZO in the New Testament often describes a spiritual reality, an intense experience rather than a purely physical body transportation to earth. Examples can be found in Matthew 11:12, quote, From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. The violent seized on and claimed the kingdom for themselves eagerly. John 10:12b, and the wolf catches the sheep and scatters them. Here the wolf seizes the sheep and claims them for his own. And June 23, quote, But others save with fear, pulling them out of the fire, hating even the garment defiled by the flesh. They snatch them out of the fire. This word does not demand a physical removal from the planet. Next we have air, A-E-R. It's translated as air. And when Paul mentions meeting the Lord in the air, modern interpretations often conjure images of outer space or the heavens. However, in Greek, there are two distinct words for air. Uranos refers to the upper atmosphere or heavens. Air, Strong's G109, means the air, particularly the lower and denser air, is distinguished from the higher and rarer air. It's the air we breathe. It's the lower atmosphere, not the celestial realm. Paul's deliberate choice of air suggests an earthly experience. In fact, air can even carry a spiritual connotation as seen in Ephesians 2:2a, quote, in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air. You see, your feet don't have to leave the ground to be in the air. Finally, APANTESIS, G529, which means to meet. This word is crucial. The common rapture teaching portrays believers meeting Jesus in the sky to then go into heaven with him. But the meaning of APANTESIS and other New Testament uses tells a different story. In Acts 28:15, believers from Rome went out to meet Paul and then escorted him back to the city. Similarly, in Matthew 25:1-10, the virgins went out to meet the bridegroom to then escort him back to the wedding hall. In both instances, the meaning is an escort, a welcoming party that brings the arriving dignitary back to the destination, not away from it. Therefore, the image evoked in 1 Thessalonians 4 with believers meeting Jesus in the air is that of spiritually being caught up, not to leave earth, but to go out and meet and then escort Jesus back to the earth to begin his rule. The idea of believers being physically transported to heaven in a little rapture is in fact foreign to the true context of these Greek words. Now let's address the tribulation itself. Dispensationalists teach a future tribulation from which believers will escape via rapture. However, Jesus himself gave instructions on how to escape the tribulation, and those instructions were explicitly earthly and physical. In Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21, Jesus commanded his followers when they saw the approaching signs, specific signs tied to Jerusalem, to flee to the mountains. This was an instruction for physical escape, not supernatural removal. This points directly to the Roman siege of Jerusalem in AD 66 to 70. Furthermore, John in Revelation 1:9 states that he was already experiencing the tribulation with the saints of the seven churches. This indicates that tribulation was a present reality for them, not a future event they would be raptured away from. A critical point is the timing of these events. Paul wrote to the Thessalonians using language like we who are alive and remain, and consistent use of you, us, we, our, and your throughout chapters 1, 2, 3, and 5 of 1 Thessalonians. It makes no sense for Paul to describe events that would happen thousands of years after his audience was gone. He was speaking to his contemporaries about events that they would experience. Consider 2 Thessalonians 2, 1-2, where some Thessalonians actually believed the day of the Lord had already happened. This clearly shows they expected these events within their lifetime, not in some distant future. They did not envision the cosmos going up in flames or graves opening thousands of years later. In fact, 1 Thessalonians 4:13-17 follows Matthew 24 and 25 point by point. Christ coming with a shout on clouds of glory, with angels and trumpets, and the gathering of all the saints. All of these Jesus promised would happen in his generation, as stated definitively in Matthew 24:34. Please note this. Think rationally, not emotionally. Who set the context for all these events? It was Jesus. The very scriptures dispensationalists and Zionists and others use to, quote, prove a future rapture do nothing of a sort. Jesus' words dispute it. Have you never seen Jesus' own petition in John 17:15, where he prayed to the Father saying, quote, I do not ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one? Jesus' desire was not for his followers to be removed from earthly challenges, but to be protected and preserved through them. When we understand the original Greek words, the historical context, and Jesus' own words, the picture changes dramatically. The rapture as a physical escape from a future global tribulation does not align with the evidence. Instead, the scriptures point to a specific historical tribulation in AD 66 to 70 from which followers were to physically flee. The meeting in the air was an escort for Christ's return to earth, and these events were directly relevant to Paul's audience. Now, I'm going to end here. Please post your comments down below. Please share the video. And if you haven't, please subscribe to my channel, especially if you've been watching the videos but haven't had a chance to subscribe yet. I do have a goal. I'd like to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and with your help and God's blessing, I'm certain we can do it. Thank you.